Hello. Thank you for joining me on a walk today. Just gorgeous out, right? The sun shining through the trees makes my heart happy. And it's the kind of trail where there's beauty hiding for anyone willing to take the hike. In this video, I'm going to talk about a few podcasts that I listen to and enjoy. I recently finished and mailed off a crocheted gift to my most favorite podcast hosts, and I'm going to talk about that. Also, popcorn. I'm going to show how I make it on the stove, as is tradition. And then I might find some other random thing to talk about. I miss my dad for lots of reasons. He was really cool. He was fun to talk to and honestly hilarious. I wonder what he would think about my channel. But something he was pretty known for was his sick popcorn making abilities. He used to make enough popcorn to fill a large paper bag and take it uptown to share at the bar. Or make an extra large batch and have his friends come over and play bumper pool in his garage. It was definitely a treat that was passed down through my Grammy Mossman's side of the family. Cheap, easy, and awesome. I absolutely love popcorn. If I think about it, I can still see my dad with a fistful of popcorn trying to shove every bit of it into his mouth while we watch some 80s or 90s violent action movie. But I'm about to show you now how to make popcorn on the stove. Start with a hot pan. I have this specific pan for chili, stir fry, and popcorn. Coat the bottom with oil. My dad used vegetable oil, which I'm sure was simply the cheapest. However, I use olive oil. One of my bottles is basically empty, and when it gets to that point, I've made a habit out of propping them at an angle upside down in the cupboard so I can try to get every last drop. When coating the bottom, it should be a thick layer, As it heats, the oil will thin out to the consistency of water, and that's when you add a few kernels. No more than 10 and no less than 3. These will be the testers for adding the rest of the corn. Tilting the pan is very important to keep the kernels from burning and to keep coating them. After one pops, I try to wait for a second one to pop to make sure it's really hot and ready. When adding the kernels, you want a single layer of corn and to leave a small amount of empty space. I added that last splash of kernels and it was too much. All of them will not pop because the oil to kernels ratio isn't accurate. But after it's in the pan, no takebacks. Essentially, I'm trying to boil the kernels in the oil, but it's not that I want them oversaturated in a pool. We want the end result to be dry, fluffy pieces. So the basic idea is to keep them moving, coating them in oil, but giving all the kernels a chance to be on the hot, dry part of the pan. I just bought this popcorn that I've never used before, and clearly it has a high moisture content. The lid is not usually that wet, which is why I continue to cock the lid to release some of the steam. Every time I make popcorn, it's different, so my suggestion is to keep testing out possibilities. Every stove is different, so heat may be something to change. If it's taking a long time to pop, it may not be hot enough. If the kernels are burning and not popping, the heat is too high and it needs turned down. This job requires constant attention. Do not leave the popcorn alone on the stove. The pan needs shifted and shook often to keep it from burning. So continue to shake the pan so the unpopped stay on the bottom. My dad made the best popcorn. He made it so often that he had it perfected. I wonder what advice he would give me if I could ask him questions for this video. My brother got one of these butter melters for Christmas. I was jealous, so I had to find out where it came from and get myself one. It does work well, but I wonder if Dad would tease us. He used to finish popping the corn and drop a chunk of butter in the pan and melt it that way. Obviously, if the pan fills up and there are still kernels needing pop, it can be carefully and slightly dumped into another container, continuing to cook what's left in the pan. I can still remember the wooden bowl we used for popcorn when I was a kid, which is why I asked for this wooden bowl for Christmas from my dad many years ago, keeping the memory alive. So altogether, this is like a 20 to 30 minute process and completely worth it. The finishing touch is totally standard. Salt and butter to your heart's desire. Absolutely stopping for taste tests to make sure to hit the perfect amount of delicious. If I didn't bring up some crazy side thought that my brain has conjured, I don't believe that I would be showing my true self. So here we go. Any unpopped kernel in a cooked batch is called an old maid. I'm sure this is now considered offensive, and I understand why. Now we can call them what they are, unpopped. However, I find it way more fun to play word games. So, renaming, I have a few ideas. How about bachelors? Nah, that doesn't have the same connotations. How about incels? Ew. Kind of extreme and honestly gross. How about basement dwellers? That could be unisex, right? Oh, I got it. Tooth chipper. Direct, to the point. and not offensive. Let me know in the comments if you have your own opinions. I was introduced to podcasts by a good friend of mine that I worked with. I want to say it was 5 years ago. I believe the first one he told me to listen to is Your Mom's House, or it was Two Bears, One Cave. Either way, both are great podcasts. They both are comedy, and they both have a solid catalog. But I quickly found other podcasts as well, informative ones, historical ones. So I do have three lists. The first one is comedians. They're very entertaining and distracting. I enjoy their banter and I love how there's a community of them. The second one is the informative podcasts, the facts, the storytellers. Makes learning feel like it's a good use of time. And then third, this one's my favorite. The comedic, informative, and also true crime. And this is where one of my latest projects has developed from. So, the podcast that I just sent a crocheted blanket to is called I Said Goddamn. The two hosts are Aaron and Stacy, and they have been besties since high school. And you can tell. I love the way they talk to each other and how they make each other laugh and their inside jokes. And it's a great time listening to them. Each week, they start out the podcast with a goddamn. So they tell the other one what made them say goddamn in their week. And then each week takes a turn telling a story. And it's usually been murder and horrible, terrible things. So recently, though, Stacy has started doing the Epstein files, and her deep dives are insane. I cannot say that enough. I think they both have great stories. I think they both do a great job. But lately, these Epstein stories are wild. Anyway, one of their goddams was that their friendship bracelet was broken by one of their dogs. And it kind of inspired me to make the blanket that I made for them. So they each get a half of this blanket, and it kind of is just a lap blanket. They live in California, so it's never as cold as Iowa, but they can leave the blanket on the chairs if they're not using them, and if they're cold for some reason, they can use them to cover up. But anyway, the point is that it is their podcast cover, and I just wanted to thank them for so many hours of entertainment. And yeah, that's kind of all. On to the random. So this is a blanket I'm working on for my brother for his Christmas present. And I don't want to show too much, just in case he watches this and then he knows what he's getting for his present. But I did want to talk about my dad. There was a story that he had told us a few times about when he was a kid and was at the swimming pool. I don't know how old he was or who all was there, but I do know that his uncle David was there. And that's Grammy Mossman's youngest child and my dad's mother's brother. Anyway, my dad was about to jump off the diving board and he changed his mind. If he was going to dive and decided to cannonball, I'll never know. But he put his hands out to stop himself on the railing, and one hand hooked and the other slipped off. And he spun off of the diving board, falling onto the concrete, hitting his feet and then his jaw off of his knee, breaking his jaw, knocking him out and back into the water. Uncle David saw him and saved his life, pulled him out and saved his life. After swimming, they went over to Grammy Mossman's for a snack of bacon and popcorn. And my dad said that they definitely knew he was hurt after he couldn't chew the bacon. So he had his jaw wired shut and had to eat baby food through a straw. Sounds awful, but how lucky to have been saved by Uncle David, especially since the most terrible thing happened later. David was still young, had a couple of young kids, and he was scuba diving, I believe, in Lake Michigan. And I believe that his tank ran out of oxygen and he died by drowning. So it's just a horrible coincidence that he died the same way that he saved my dad from dying. Enjoy your life. It is yours.